what if you could see dance as a medium rather than the end goal, rather than the product? If you could use dance as a conduit to connect as a communicative tool, wouldn't that be able to seep into daily life much easier? So instead of consuming dance, can you use dance to consume other things? That was my mindset. That was like, okay. And that's what we don't really need dance, but we need media to consume everything else, right? Dance is just a packaging. And there is not one person in this world, I believe. There is not one human being who cannot dance in this world. There is no such thing as that. Dancing is the simplest movement available to the human body. It is just how you assume that role.
Welcome to Point to Rise, your podcast that gives you permission to dream big, take messy action, and turn your talent into profit while turning your back on perfection. My name is Susanne Puerschel, high performance and mindset coach, former international ballerina, profitable entrepreneur, and founder of Point to Rise, a movement designed to empower dancers. It is my mission to use my own story as an inspiration for today's generation of dancers. And now sit back, stretch, warm up, or sip your coffee and love learning how much it matters to point at yourself first to rise to all that you are capable of. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Point to Rise podcast. My name is Suzanne and I am your host today. Today we have Jason from the Background Dancer podcast here, and I am so excited to have this conversation. I was already on his podcast and I think we went way over time, and it was just such a fulfilling conversation with him. So the Background Dancer sheds light on critical aspects underpinning the dance and performing arts industry through topics ranging from management, entrepreneurship, education, and technology. Host Jason Yap details fascinating and useful information to help deepen your knowledge of all things offstage while exploring and preparing together for a post-performance career, because we all know it's going to end at one point, and then what are we going to do? I think somewhat, many of us have been in that position. I know I have been afraid of it during my entire career. So without no further ado, here is Jason. Jason, I am so grateful that you're here. I have been looking forward to this particular time today all week, because I know our conversations are always juicy. Thank you for being here.
Wow, thank you so much, Suzanne. That is a wonderful, wonderful introduction. Just the nicest. Yeah, such a pleasure, such an honor. I'm a fan of your work and I'm a fan of your podcast. And yeah, I think the stars kind of aligned that brought us together. So we're really looking forward.
I love that. I'm going to share something. When I got your message, I was actually about the one reaching out to you to see if you would be open for a collaboration. That word is really hard. And I feel sometimes fear gets in the way so much that we would hear a no, that we're not even taking action. We had a conversation about that, how hard it sometimes is to make these connections, because people tend to be fearful. I spent my entire week so far with following up with people that I have actually invited. And I hear a lot of, oh, I'm so busy and I'm sorry I couldn't, but this is happening. And this is a call to action for everybody, and that includes myself. And you don't have to take it on, but for all of us, forget about your fears. The worst that you can really hear is a no. Or the worst that you can say is no. Actually, more power to you if you're saying no versus, not answering or ghosting anybody. So set your boundaries, live within them, and stand by who you are, who you want to be, and what you want in life.
There you go. Well said. Well said. I mean, just to add on a bit of that, like when that really happens, like I guess I'm quite fortunate to say that I've been rejected a number of times, quite a number of times in my life, right? I'd rather have that, like be rejected as well, so that you can kind of understand and dive deeper into the psychology of that. And you always, if only if you get rejected, I guess you would understand, or you would even try to perceive yourself in the other person's footsteps, and you kind of go like, okay, if they actually came back to you with a reasoning or something like that, and you kind of go, I don't think that matters, right? Like whatever explanation you give, but it's really trying to like, okay, so what is the mindset there? Like, what am I to this person? What value do I bring to this person? So I think that's really fascinating. Yeah.
Love that. Well, we'll get into the psychology, which you are an expert in. However, we're going to break the ice a little bit. We're going to show Jason as what you're outside of your podcast. And I want to ask you a few questions. So do you play or watch sports ever?
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, what? Seriously? I would have never pegged that. What kind?
Oh my gosh. I am like a diehard like sportsman. In fact, before I started dancing, I was very much an athlete. Primarily football. I'm a huge football fan, and basketball. Yeah, these two things. Badminton a little bit because my country's really good at it. But other than that, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Hey, born and raised, and where do you live now?
So born in Malaysia, raised in Malaysia, not in my hometown, was not the place I was born in. I moved there. It was the East Coast. And now I'm in Slovakia, actually. So that's like 16 hours flight away from my home, a couple of seas, and a completely different culture altogether. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Have you ever taken any kind of personality tests?
Absolutely. In fact, I released an episode quite recently on my podcast titled Rope-a-Dope, and dope as in DOPE. That basically stands for the personality test, the dope personality test, the dove, owl, peacock, and eagle personality test. That was my first personality test I ever took when I enrolled into my psychology degree. So throughout my psychology degree, that was my first degree. I took like too many tests.
Enough of that. I don't want to know anything about myself anymore.
Yes.
What season is your favorite?
Oh my gosh. So, okay, growing up in Malaysia, like I was there for about 23 years before I moved to Hong Kong. That was the first time I ever lived outside of my country. Malaysia does not have seasons. So we are summer all year long, right? The Mediterranean. But I would say probably, I don't know, I think I'm pretty much a cop out here. Maybe autumn. Like autumn's quite nice. I mean, spring is usually, I think, people's favorites, I would feel. But autumn for me is like, yeah. So you're getting into the winter time, but it's not really winter yet, and it's sort of over past the hectic summer, months. So I would say autumn. I love, and if I ever meet somebody whose name is Autumn, oh my gosh, like I would marry that person. Like,
just putting that out there, ladies. If
great
you're
name,
Autumn,
great name.
you just contact. I love it. We're turning this podcast in a totally different way. What's your favorite food?
My favorite food? Goodness. Malaysian noodles. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like noodles. I'm a noodle man. Yeah.
Favorite animal?
Cats.
Wow.
Love cats.
You're a cat person.
I'm a
What's
cat
your
person.
sign? What's your astronomical sign?
I'm a Virgo.
Oh.
Yep, there you go.
I am going to let you off the hook here in a moment. Who was your role model growing up?
Okay. Two people, and they were both sportsmen, They originated from my two favorite sports. So basketball, Kobe Bryant, the late great Kobe Bryant, and football, my favorite team in England, Liverpool Football Club, Steven Gerrard, the captain of Liverpool Football Club, yeah, back then. So, but if it wasn't them, I would probably say, I don't know, like I'm thinking of like a company, like a big tech company. I would say Steve Jobs probably runs quite close. So yeah, I think maybe that, yeah.
Yeah, he is. I do relate to Steve Jobs and looking at him and what he's done and how he did it in many ways, even though he may not be the best to be around at times, but his there is no it can't be done mentality, absolutely admire that. Last question, and gosh, I just had it. Why did it go away? Yep, done. Out of my head. We'll just jump right into.
All right. Are you sure you don't want to look for it again?
Oh my goodness.
You seem to have a really nice list there.
I do have 100 questions right here on the other screen, just so you know. But nope.
All right.
Not gonna happen. It's gonna come back. I know it. Okay, so walk us through your journey a little bit. I know a few things about you, but I want you to share. You're currently dancing. How did you get there, and where did that come from?
So, would you give me the permission to go all the way back?
Oh, totally. You have permission granted.
Well, fret not, because I have not been in the dance industry for that long anyway. So thank God, so that my story wouldn't be too long-winded. I've only been dancing for, I think, 10 to 12 years maximum, because I was a sportsman, right? So I think at the time, my first dance class was when I was 16. And I'm turning 29, so that was about 13 years ago. And that was because I was reaching the end of my athletic career, or let's say interests. I was sort of hitting the nadir at that point. And I was like, okay, I need something else to sort of invigorate myself again, right? So had an invite from a friend and took my first dance class in ballroom, Latin. And I never thought that would be as fun as it was. And I actually picked it up pretty quickly, and just kept on going, you know. And then at some point, I think Michael Jackson died, and the whole world was like making tributes for him, including me. So I was like, okay, let's get on. Yeah.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Do we have this on film?
I think somewhere back in like my archive or something, literally like just mimicking, like everyone was doing it, right? And it was just so hot. Like I wanted to jump on the bandwagon as well, getting on the act, you know, and that really kind of like, I would say, yeah, like settled, like dance settled in my life at that point. I was like, okay, let's do this. It's quite fun. But I think it was when I was 18, I remembered watching Cable Bundle on television and came across So You Think You Can Dance. I was like, what is this? You know? Oh my gosh, what is this, right? I know.
Like a revolution to see that coming up. It gave dance and ballet even permission to exist and to be something your average person could consume.
Exactly. And I think that time it was already like season 4 or 5, I remembered. And literally all of my dance role models started off from that show, right? I can remember a couple of them, like, you know, Robert Roldan was one of my favorite in season 7. Young Kent, little boy, like from the farm, season 7. I love those people. And then of course we have Travis Wall and all these big names there. Yeah. So, yeah, like all these people dance, you know, like different types of genres. They come into the show and just became something else. And I think So You Think You Can Dance really inspired me. After watching that show, I was like, okay, I need to take dance a bit seriously now. And I kind of modeled my life after that show. Like I literally went into every single genre, paid for every single class, and did like 5 classes a week in every single genre. Anything you can think of, tap, jazz, contemporary, ballet, modern, even singing classes. I was like, okay, I want to be on that show. And at the time, actually, my country, for some reason, actually got licensing to do 2 seasons of Our Own So You Think You Can Dance. So I was kind of like aspiring to be on that show. Never happened because, it got canceled after 2 seasons. So that was it, and I was like, okay, fine. But I think the turning point was when I started taking ballet classes. I think it was 18. I graduated from high school and I was like, okay, nobody likes ballet. I heard a lot of people talk about it. And I had a lot of friends leaving ballet instead of going into it. And I was an 18-year-old, really stiff sort of athlete guy going into ballet. And yeah, like I remember this, I think I told you before, but I was stepping into the center and my teacher was like, I think this is a bit too late for you. Like, don't you want to consider other stuff? I was like, yeah, but can I at least try? That really filled me. So I was dancing around like 5-year-olds and stuff. So I wanted to take a dance degree immediately after that, but I did not have the skills necessary to do so. So I went into my first degree first in psychology and kind of like continued, on the sides, really sort of learning ballet, really taking exams at the time, RAD as well. So really going through the motions and making sure that I had some kind of technique just in case, right? All this time, I'm always questioning and putting out that question, like, what if? Never knew if that dream could still happen at some point. So I was doing hip hop a lot, on ballet, a lot of that. And I hated ballet, but I was forcing myself to go to classes because I knew that technique would be useful at some point. And true enough, after I graduated, after 3 years, I auditioned on a whim and I was accepted. I was like, oh my gosh. And I was accepted into the Hong Kong Academy for Performing Arts on a full scholarship as well, because they had that program that sort of really assisted all these much older, I was 23 at the time, much older dancers who may not have had a good background upbringing in dance, or they supported them financially and really sort of encouraged more men in dance. Mm-hmm. So I was one of the lucky few who got in, danced for 4 years, majored in contemporary, minored in ballet. And then when I graduated, I did another whim. I bought a ticket, flew to Europe and auditioned for 2 companies at a time, and one took me in. And yeah, 2 years later, I'm here in Slovakia. I'm in a full-time contemporary dance company. It's a state-funded company. It's called Divadlo Studio Dansa, which translates to Theater Dance Studio. And yeah, like it's kind of like the dream come true, because I feel like dancing full-time is sort of a pinnacle for anyone who's aspiring for a dance career. And I've been a freelancer myself for a little while before going into my dance degree. I was like, that was fun, but full-time, oh my gosh, like you've been a full-time dancer yourself, right? Like it's a completely different level. It's a different mindset and just a very different level of commitment, I would say. And, people always ask like, who do you dance for? Do you dance for your boss? Do you dance for your colleagues? I was like, no, kind of, yes. But honestly, the only thing I truly serve is dance, like the art form, the commitment to the art form, the discipline, the sacrifice, and like one day, hopefully not needing to say it's a sacrifice. It's just your passion, it's part of your life. Yeah. So that's kind of like the story. Long story short, from Malaysia to Hong Kong and now to Slovakia.
I love it. Let's get into sacrifice. It's a very interesting topic. And I've heard so many as of late. People say that it takes a lot of sacrifices to become a dancer. So I'm going to go from my own experience. I understand that somebody that is not in our shoes may see it as sacrifices to spend long hours, to not maybe have a weekend, to do all the things that we have endured during our becoming and our careers as dancers. I find that for me, these were never sacrifices. It never felt as such. However, I find that the line between sacrificing and the pain that we're seeing in the industry that is bubbling up out of every open door, out of every lid, it's being labeled as a sacrifice. And I find the line is dwindling a little bit. And I want to get into this. Why not? What is, when you say sacrifice, what does that mean to you?
So I want to reference one of my most crucial mentors. His name is Joseph Gonzalez. He's a professor at the Hong Kong Academy for Performing Arts, a fellow Malaysian himself, and he also owns a dance company. And he once said something very, very, very important to me. And he said that, because I asked him, I was like, how do you do this? He's about 60 years old now, and he's been in the industry for like 40 over years. You know, he's done literally almost every role. And I was like, okay, resilience, endurance, those are the common themes about a dancer's journey, right? And he said, I don't feel like I'm sacrificing, exactly what you just said. Like, if you love something enough, it's not a sacrifice. It's part of your life, you know? And that is so, firstly, it's true. If you think about it at a deeper level. Secondly, it takes so much to kind of shape that mindset that it's quite easy to call something a sacrifice if you're not enjoying it, or if it brings you some level of pain, or if it takes away some level of pleasure, let's say, right? And dance does that a lot. Whether it's a muscular kind of pain, whether it's a time consumption kind of pain, whether it is like for me, at least right now, my personal experience, like distance from your loved ones and all that sorts. And I think I can easily label all of these things sacrifices. And I think to some degree they are sacrifices, because it's very much in the nature of the work that we do, that we are investing quite a lot into this art form. And it is only through this manner can we actually be fulfilled? Can we actually gain any kind of fulfillment, any reward? Because it's a very, very high level art form. And you can do it to any level. It's a scalable one as well. But people who have dreams to become the best at what they do, everything needs to be upped, the ante, right? So you have to really, you have to contribute so much of your time and effort into something. What does sacrifice mean to me? I would say everything that I just said, like, yes, I've thought about them as sacrifices, but I think sacrifices, firstly, they are there to motivate me that I'm fighting for a cause, that I'm not just doing this for myself. And at some point, I think sacrifices will transform into something else. So it's a very temporary sort of mindset. Like, it starts from a sacrifice, I believe, but once you master that state of mind, and this comes with a lot of what you call that, a lot of shaping, a lot of refining of your lifestyle, right? You're managing your lifestyle. Sacrifice will slowly transform into just the fabric of your life. So do I want sacrifices? Do I need to go through sacrifices? Absolutely. It's a big part of everyone's lives. But I think, yeah, like use that to further your cause, to sharpen your focus, and to deepen your purpose. So that's what sacrifice means to me. Yeah.
I think sacrifice, I loved how you actually reframed it when you were talking about it as an investment in yourself, into your own fulfillment, into your happiness. That for me sits a little bit more comfortable, because what we're seeing is that, as I said, the line of sacrificing oneself or your dignity or your respect for the art form it's really dwindling, and it's almost expected. There are all of these things that you have to do in order to call yourself a dancer, but where you're actually giving yourself up as a person, as a human being, and where is the sacrifice that you're taking? Where is it actually not needed, but something we assume is needed in order to become? I'm gonna leave this right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The Background Dancer podcast. So, um, by the way, if you haven't subscribed and listened to it yet, I highly recommend you do. Where did this idea come from? Like, why are you so passionate about what's coming after a dancer's career when you actually just started?
Yep.
Like, where's your thinking?
Oh, that's really nice. Yeah, so that's exactly what the Background Dancer podcast is about. It's about the post-performance career. It's about maybe during performance career, everything that is related to not just dancing, right? So I think all of this really started during my last year at the Hong Kong Academy for Performing Arts. And I initiated a project called Stage. And this project was basically just any other project. It was a curatorial project. I got to manage a little group, an art collective, and then we just went about sort of organizing all kinds of events. And what that really taught me was there is such a supply of artistic talent worldwide, and there is so little demand for their talents. And I started to wonder, is this because of the existing infrastructures? Is it because of the landscape? Where can I draw and trace the line towards? Why are we churning out thousands and thousands of graduates every single year, and at least half of them remain jobless even after 2 or 3 years, right? And of course, it's dependent on many factors. It's depending on what the graduates want to do as well. Do they want to go into a performing career? And if they do, is it a full-time one? Is it a part-time one? Doesn't matter. But there are variances to all these things. Everybody wants to do something different. The key question still is, a lot of people, I think, and I can draw references from a lot of my peers whom I graduated with, and even myself, when I was graduating, I did not really knew clearly what my next path would be, because the window towards what we are taught to do is so small. When you go into a conservatoire and an academy, 90% of the time, they would hope that you will become a professional dancer in a company, right? That is basically the goal.
That's all there.
That is all there is. I have never heard of any academy or university that teaches someone to be a dance something else, a dance educator, a dance technologist, or whatever sort. And hopefully there will be more like that in the future. But yeah, because dance, it is a very performative act. So in order to embody and embrace the dance in its entirety, you have to perform, right? And I got that. I totally understand. And I was so close to quitting dance when I graduated from the academy, because I thought that there is such a limit to what my body can do. The message that I wanted to convey to the world, that dance is just more than something on the stage. And I felt there was such a short-termism about it. Once every production is done, you talk about it for a maximum of a week, and that's about it, right? And then I started drawing comparisons to other industries, technology, business, movies. Why do these things remain in people's memories much longer than dance could? I don't understand. Like, if I put a laptop in front of you and you get to choose between watching Netflix and English National Ballet, you would definitely choose Netflix. Why not English National Ballet? And I just like, okay, something has to be done in order for dance to really seep into the food chain of activities in everyday life. Can there be a point where dance becomes a necessity? Because it's the only language, honestly, if you look at it from all the art forms in the world, it's the only one that you can clearly say is a universal language. Theater isn't a universal language because it's language dependent. Music, you need an instrument in order to sound. Dance is body language. It is the most pristine of art forms, because people started dancing back already from the cave days, right? The old ages. So that really gave me all the inspiration to go, first of all, if you are in a dance training, I can guarantee you that you know so much more than just stepping on stage and dancing a piece. The training is so robust. The training is so diverse. It's just that 90% of the time you don't get to use anything else. So I wanted to really raise awareness and go, what if we all collectively, very importantly, collectively could create this ecosystem where we have experts across the field, across the industry. There are leaders, there are experts, there are game changers that would step up and literally broaden a sector enough to be able to hire people and allow people to belong depending on their most valuable skill sets. Technology, business, health, fashion, oh my gosh. And I'm pretty sure, get what I mean? Yeah.
No, because you're talking my language. Like I am buzzing over here. It's like, can I interject, please? Because I have so much to put in it.
Please, Suzanne, please.
No, I don't want to keep going, but
I
have a sticky note right here on my computer that says ballet and dance is a luxurious necessity that everyone feels worthy to consume. When you said, would I choose Netflix over English National Ballet? Absolutely. You know why? Because I can identify myself in a movie, in a rom-com, in a drama, in a history documentary, more than I can identify myself right now in somebody turning 10 pirouettes, so skinny that I'm afraid that they're going to fall over and are an empty shell. And I am not saying that everybody is that way, but it is not relatable to many, where Netflix is relatable to many. So how are we going to make dance? There's 7.8 billion dancers in this world. We all at some point danced. It doesn't need to be professional, but how can we make it relatable again to everyone? Like, when are we stopping to make it so elite and not understandable? Like, let's take, what's this? Story Brand, the book, Story Brand. Like, you need to have a hero, you have to have a guide, and you need to have another person. And I'm sorry, I can't really bring this back. I'm sorry if you're listening to this. But it's so important, and we don't have that in ballet because we're taking it out of like 2 centuries ago.
Yeah.
Combining all of this is the answer for making it actually something that in 100 years, we're still being able to put it on. Like, why are we only having so many companies, right? Like, why isn't it a business? Let's make it a business.
Yeah.
And let's shed our ego. Like, the ego is so heavy, and it's the biggest overhead the arts is carrying till today, that we're forgetting what we're actually here to do.
Yeah. Now, it's quite funny that, like, for example, your background is in classical ballet, and I come from a contemporary dance background, and there is such an antithesis, like an antagonistic relationship between the contemporary dance world and the ballet world, right? I think you know this more than anything else. And for example, if I look at contemporary dance in America, Canada, it's so different from what they do in Europe. It's very, very different. And I wish it was not this way, but unfortunately, classical ballet has become quite the meme of dance with regards to how everything can sort of improve on, and right? And you always use classical ballet as the basis of where things went wrong. And it's kind of true because, you know, first of all, you have to give credit to the world of classical ballet. They were one of the pioneers of any art form, any dance form, right? Like becoming a professional dancer. Back then, the system was to become a professional ballet dancer. And when you are a professional ballet dancer, even today, there is such a prestige to it, right? And look at the whole wide world right now. Kids are going to ballet centers at the age of 5. They don't go to jazz, contemporary tap dance centers, not many. Most of them go to ballet centers because of the princess, you know, because of the princess thing, you know, the whole hero prince thing. And it's wonderful. The fantasy world lives on. But yet again, why just the ballet world, right? I always ask this question, like, is the ballet world the only thing that's going wrong? Actually, no, of course not. It's the whole ecosystem. Yeah. It's the whole ecosystem. But the ballet world can teach us a lot of things. That is for sure. Now, one of the things, and I heard this on your podcast as well, is why not treat ballet companies like a business, right? Like, absolutely. Like, yeah, run profit. Like, absolutely run profit, not be an NGO or social enterprise. I mean, we need those things, but run it like a profit-based company. And then, you know, more importantly, focus on your customers, focus on your audience, really bridge that gap between the content creator and the content consumers. So I think, yeah, for sure, absolutely, we have a lot to do. And that was what really, I think, gave me the impetus to start a podcast, mainly just to talk about these things, to raise awareness. And when I set out my thematic framework for the podcast, like I was going through some of the topics that I could talk about. Within 10 seconds, I had 10 major categories. And it was just like, wait, that was not that hard. But I don't really see all of these things talked about. And as you know, when, you know, this is very much relevant to all content creators and entrepreneurs, you always start with wanting to find something, right? You want to identify a service. And if it's not existent, you just create it. If you can't find X, Y, or Z, you create X, Y, Z and A, for example. So I was looking up a lot of all these things. You know, I'm really huge on management and entrepreneurship, and I couldn't find anything related to dance at the time. Now I could. And I was like, okay, let's talk about it. And then, of course, that sort of opened the floodgates. And yeah, the background dancer was inspired by my own experiences of always being in the background when I started dancing. Like my teacher would actually just say, go to the back. We don't really want to see you just dance at the back for a bit. So yeah, but I'm still contributing, right? So that very much is the message of the podcast. You are always contributing, no matter where you are. You're always a piece of the puzzle. You just need to find out how much of that piece of that puzzle you want to be part of. Yeah.
So good. Do you remember when we talked about entrepreneurship? And I actually found a whole sequence that I wrote out around entrepreneurship in one of the books that when I participated in the mastermind. And it's entrepreneurship is about going first and taking risks, about thinking big and planning globally, about not being satisfied with where you are and always being curious how you can improve. Get up and grab some great attitude. Try new things, question the status quo. Don't really rely on colors within the lines or do things the way it has always been done.
Nice.
Right?
Exactly.
I can't believe I actually wrote this.
Way to go, Suzanne. Exactly. I mean, you coined the term. I don't know, I've never heard anyone said it, but you coined the phrase, like, entrepreneurship is not a job, it's an attitude, it's a mindset. And like you say entrepreneurship or businessman, like, oh my gosh, that really scares the hell out of dancers and artists alike. Like the word business just does not, conciliate with artists at all. And I was like, no, don't worry, it's not a job, it's an attitude, it's a mindset.
Yeah, and let's go there. Because I want to really help everybody unveil that this is actually a belief that I actually carried for so many decades with me. Why we're carrying that belief, like what is it really deeply? What's the root? What's the bottom of that iceberg? Where we're so apprehensive of taking on any kind of business strategies or even looking outside of the dance or art, call it the art bubble, to what are actually successful companies doing? Like, what could we learn from a Steve Jobs? What could we learn from Google or Netflix or Disney?
Yeah.
What
Absolutely.
do you think it is? Like, what is you're the psychologist,
Okay. I would start with maybe my own personal experiences. I remember when I was still quite young. I think I was going into my first degree at the time, 2021, still very much a novice in the dance ball, right? And I asked my uncle, I said, what is business? Sorry, actually, I said, he asked me, what do you think business is? Because he asked me to do a business degree. And I was like, I'm going to do a psychology degree. He's like, no, try to do a business degree. And I was like, I don't like business. And he asked me, what do you think business is? It's like, it's money, it's figures. And he was like, no, the fundamental idea of business is trade, right? It's just about trade. That's it. So I think it's just a misunderstanding. It's a huge misconception of what business can be or what it is. So when you attach that, for example, to the world of arts, because what we're always trying to create in the arts is so subjective that something as quantifiable as figures and money, let's say, becomes very much the threat of diluting this subjectivity. And in subjectivity, we can find artistry, right? Like that's basically how we make a living, is to be able to coin different artistic ideas and then sort of own them and go, this is my idea, this is my artistry. But then everything else, like literally everything else, has a number to it. And I think arts really cannot accept that. The fact that it is something that gets created and also can be translated into a quantifiable form or, quantifiable data, let's say. So I think that's really kind of the apprehension of accepting arts as more than just self-expressive tools or self-expressive like ideas. And yeah, like entrepreneurship and business, like, first of all, we really need to acknowledge the fact that we don't get taught a lot about business in arts education, right? Like you have to take an extra master's out of that or something like that. But I mean, we all go through economics and stuff in high school, but when you go to a dance degree, for example, very few of them actually teach you how to be an entrepreneur. And the second thing I want to bring up is, if you talk about economics 101, I was talking to a whole lot of financiers and economists, students, and all these kinds of people as well. And they said, yeah, Jason, don't freak out when I say entrepreneurship or economics, all these really huge words and jargons. Is that economy, business is just, I provide a service and you consume the service. Is there a supply? Is there a demand? So business in its entirety is very much applicable to everything, including arts. If there is a ballet company, there's a supply. If there is a little city that the ballet company is in, that's your demand, right? So I think we're already entrenched within that. We're already embedded within that system. Economics 101, everything is economics. We just don't really see that way as of now. So before I say, okay, is this going to continue? For sure, I think it is, but we have to, I think the movement starts now to really sort of shift that mindset, reshape it, reframe it, that, don't use big words anymore. Like that's not the way to educate. Like let them just say it's a trade. It's offering your services and being rewarded justly for that. Yeah.
Business equals trade. I love that. Oh goodness, that's so good. So many ways we could take that. I should have taken notes because there was so much good stuff in there. I would love to add to this. From my personal experience, I always thought that business actually is in the way of creating art, because business is so structured and it's so black and white that there is no room for creativity.
Yeah.
And I have learned that it actually is the opposite, that there is so much room for creativity in really clear and beautifully set boundaries that business does bring to the table. It also brings sustainability to the table. If we look at it from a different perspective and ask the better question. Like I find it so intriguing how you got to where you are today by simply asking yourself the question, always and forever, what if?
Yep.
What if has nothing to do with black or white. What if has always to do with the gray. And in the gray is where we actually grow, where we innovate, where we become more. And I feel that the arts could step more into the gray in order to explore what the next century is going to look like. Like, are we going to repeat the last century? Are we going to repeat all of that? Or are we going to start creating something different? Something that can invite more people in? I don't know if you
Absolutely. Accessibility, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
Tony Robbins.
Or is it Bob Proctor? One of those geniuses that your ability to earn is always equated to the ability on how many people you are impacting. So if an arts organization really only relies on one stream of income, and that stream of income is putting on performances in a theater that holds 1,200, 2,600 people, that really limits very clearly your capability of producing an income. Where if you would open up your customer base, your fans, imagine what you could actually bring in. If you would lift that curtain, if you would extend your walls and letting go of that belief that you are only worth of, I don't know, being paid if you're performing on a stage, then you would start making a difference. Then you would be able to start, okay, what could that look like? Is there a way we could make this happen? Has anybody else done it yet? No, fine, I'll go first. I'll try it. I fail. I'll still do it. And I think this is the mentality, the taking out it has to be perfect and say, okay, we're just going to take messy action and we're going to try our very best to make it work. And who's with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I like to talk about 2 points. So firstly, there's a commonality, there is a similarity between entrepreneurs, the word or the job, the role that we so much fear to talk about, entrepreneurship, and artistry. So artists and entrepreneurs, right? There's a similarity. What is the similarity? Simple as hell. Both need to be very, very creative. Both are problem solvers, right? The only difference is the type of content that is produced at the very end. So in my own progress, in my own development, in becoming also hopefully one day an entrepreneur myself, of course, also acknowledging the fact that it being an attitude and a mindset could also result in being a job, right? I want to be an entrepreneur, really being earning money out of it, is the fact that I was wondering if I became an entrepreneur and started, let's say, building companies and establishing networks, and what essentially is producing a completely different type of content, not the ones that get to be, staged in theaters, would I not be contributing to the world of dance? Because that was the environment that we were brought up in, to choreograph, right? To contribute to this archive of artistic, abstract, metaphorical, poetic content through the body. And that was quite contradictory. That was very conflicting. I was like, okay, so am I not part of, I think the better way to put it is, would I be even more detached? But that's just the wrong way of looking at it. You're actually helping people out. And that's what I want to talk about as well. The second point is like podcasting. So very recently, like my last episode, I also talked about, this could be quite controversial, but I compared the reason why podcasting has become the fastest or one of the fastest growing forms of media is the fact that it's a medium, right? It's not the end goal. It's just a medium. And I eventually related dance similarly. What if you could see dance as a medium rather than the end goal, rather than the product? If you could use dance as a conduit to connect as a communicative tool, wouldn't that be able to seep into daily life much easier? So instead of consuming dance, can you use dance to consume other things? That was my mindset. That was like, okay. And that's what we don't really need dance, but we need media to consume everything else, right? Dance is just a packaging. And there is not one person in this world, I believe. There is not one human being who cannot dance in this world. There is no such thing as that. Dancing is the simplest movement available to the human body. It is just how you assume that role, right, to your own regard. So if we could package dance like that, it is the most accessible, automatic, inborn facility that we have. And you could use that thinking, that ability to access your body and then go and consume other things. Why not? Why not? Right? That's very much my thinking of like entrepreneurship. Like, stop thinking of dance as the ultimate content. Think of it as the ultimate tool for your content.
I have nothing to add. We're gonna stop right here. You know what? I remembered my question that I had earlier.
Yeah.
What book are you currently reading?
Oh, okay. I have to admit, I'm not very much a book reader.
Okay, then.
But I'm an avid podcaster. Yeah. Podcast listener.
So outside of the, let's say, ballet, podcasting, or dance or arts, what is your go-tos? Like, who do you listen to for inspiration?
Okay, so my favorite one at the moment is hosted by a guy named Susanne Puerschel, and it's called The Knowledge Project. So very much non-dance. That's literally my favorite one. Like, I listen to that, then the dance podcasts. That's the first one. Second one will probably be something called Something You Should Know. So general knowledge stuff. And then it trickles down. And then I start listening to things like, so I have my phone here. I've created like a whole category of podcasts, and I dedicate each podcast player, for example, Google, Pocket Cast, Podcast Addict, Spotify, to different types of shows. My favorite one is definitely Spotify. And yeah, like, it's filled with things like, marketing school. It's filled with things like football, something called Postcards to the Future, basically talking about artists from different dance, not even dance, like art fields. So literally, like, there are days that I don't even want to listen to them, but literally it's just cultivating that habit that my dance knowledge can only be furthered if I listen to other stuff, like other things that are not dance related.
Okay, I want everybody to take a piece of paper and a pen and write that down, because this is so important. This is not something that we've been taught in school, quite the opposite, actually. Yeah. But you as a dancer, as an artist, will only, and I put the emphasis here on only, develop as an artist if you develop other knowledges. And that can be anything you want to. But if you don't know yourself, if you just concentrate on dancer, you will become that bunhead. That is.
I love that.
And you know what? I was that kind of bunhead. I truly was, because I was under the assumption that if I want to stand tall in a 90-member company, I can only concentrate on being a dancer. Yep. And I never asked myself that question, what if? So this is the learn. This is what we're passing on. This is so important. This is why I asked the question. I never used to grab a book or listen to a podcast. I started with that 4 years ago. Because I was even under the assumption that I'm not able to do that. I'm not allowed to. Like, I have to be perfect. I need to know it all. And no, you don't. Okay, this is so good. You and I need to talk offline, but last question, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but I know you can answer it. Going back to your 16-year-old self, with knowing what you know today, what would you tell him?
Okay, simple one. Like, fail more. Like, fail more for sure. I know this gets thrown around quite a lot, like, embrace failure and never be you have to fail to succeed. But it's one thing to talk about it, it's another to actually do it, right? And then there's, for me, one of my favorite let's say, thought models is scalability, the spectrum concept, that when I do anything at all in my life, I always look at it from how much. Like there's a degree to how much, the intensity value. It's not, like you said, black or white. It's 1 to 10. It's A to B, A to Z. You can choose how much you want to do something, how much, how deep, how heavy, how strong. It's up to you. And when you fail, the actively putting yourself in those situations to take those risks that will bring the potential of failure is scalable as well, right? If you don't risk, you definitely probably won't ever fail, but then you don't get the rewards. You risk more, you fail more, potentially higher reward. So I had to shift my mindset from being really afraid to fail to just failing enough to actively go, I want to be in those situations where I possibly could fail, like emphatically, because I look long term. I know before I fail, what are the plan Bs, Cs, Ds, and everything else that could maybe salvage me even if I failed. So the failure is not a dead end. And, not to make it too cliche, there will never always be a success story after the failure. Some people fail and that's it. That's the end of the story. But
that's on them.
That's on them. Yeah. So you have to actively build that pathway, envision what are the consequences that could arise if you fail, and be prepared for that. So when I was 16, I guess literally it was just, like, don't ever dare to fail, Jason, because this is your one chance, right? And I always have that is your one chance. And like before I go on, like I just want to backtrack a little bit to what you just said just now about, dance and accruing knowledge from different sectors. And as a person who studied psychology, one of the things I learned a lot is how to empathize with people, right? And the community that I empathize the most with is definitely dancers. So I just want to say two things about that. Is that firstly, I really empathize with why dancers could be afraid of external knowledge. One, I would say, like you said, there is a fear of being detached, right? Being stripped away of one's belonging. That they're not belonging to that community anymore if they subscribe to a different domain of knowledge. Like, you're not allowed to do that. That's fearful. And then the other thing is, instead of belongingness, if you go one level deeper, the ones who are super passionate about their dance community is the fact that if you maybe subscribe to different knowledges, you will not be able to contribute back to that community anymore, because you may be, let's say, led wayward and become, for example, a coffee shop owner, or a bookseller, or some other business that's not really contributing to dance anymore. I think that's also fearful. People who are really passionate and do not want to even envision succeeding in another sector and then regret not being able to give back to the dance sector. But actually, that's a joke, because if you become rich at something else, you can very easily just start a dance company, right? Yeah. So
I think it's that and either or mentality. We're not looking at the end, that there can be so much more. You're not a trader if you acquire more knowledge. You are not a trader to the art form if you have other interests as well. Yeah. When I entered ballet school, I had to sign a waiver that said that I would not continue play piano, that I would not go horseback riding or, ice skating, all of these things I was no longer allowed to do. And we're putting this new generation into the boxes that I have been into. And this is not how we grow as an art form, this is not how we acquire more knowledge and look in where we want to go as a collective. So yes, to all of this. thank you for being here, Jason. Like I could talk. This is a longer episode, you all. I hope you had your pee break. I hope you had your water. Your walk has been longer today, but you know what? You're so welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your perspective. You are already an entrepreneur. It is not about becoming one because, there is no beginning date and end date in that kind of journey as I see it. As I said, it's the mindset. It's not the actual, you make money because you're an entrepreneur. So if anything, I think you have more entrepreneurial mindset than some people that I know, putting courses out.
Than my previous self, let's say.
The previous self, whoever that was.
Yes.
So
thank you so much.
For doing. Keep going. And thanks, guys, for tuning in. If you want to check out Mr. Jason and the Background Dancer podcast, you follow the links in the show notes and you will find him all over there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, Suzanne. And let's continue providing and helping our beloved dance community.
Well, you bet. Absolutely. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for listening. If this message resonates with you, please pass it on to someone who needs to hear this right now. And if you like what you've heard, your feedback will go a very long way. If you just take 30 seconds and leave me a 5-star review, that would mean the world to me. Till next time, point at yourself to rise to all that you are capable of.